Red Bull may be facing the most dangerous crisis of the Max Verstappen era, and the truth is even bigger than the headline. Helmut Marko says he would not bet on Verstappen repeating his previous comeback. Red Bull is urgently recruiting new staff while major departures continue to raise questions. Verstappen is trying to enjoy the season wherever he can, and he is now publicly rejecting the growing narrative around his future. But here is the bombshell. The source does not name the owner, reveal a direct demand, or confirm any plan to force Verstappen out. So why does this story suddenly feel possible? Because Red Bull's real problem may not be that an owner wants Verstappen gone. It may be that the team is slowly giving its greatest driver every reason to leave. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this situation has become so dangerous, you have to look at what Max Verstappen represents inside Red Bull. He is not simply their fastest driver, he is the center of the entire project. The team's confidence, public image, and competitive identity are all tied closely to him. When Verstappen wins, Red Bull looks powerful. When he struggles, every weakness around him becomes easier to see. That is why this story matters so much. A normal driver dispute can damage a season. A conflict involving Verstappen could reshape Red Bull's entire future. But here is the first important detail. The source does not confirm that any owner has demanded his removal. There is no named owner. There is no direct quotation. There is no verified decision saying Verstappen must leave. So the real story begins somewhere else. It begins with doubt. Helmut Marko has already admitted that he would not bet on Verstappen repeating the kind of comeback he achieved during the previous season. That statement sounds simple. It is not. Marko has watched Verstappen produce extraordinary performances under enormous pressure. He has seen him recover from difficult weekends, limit damage, and extract results that looked almost impossible before the race began. So when Marko refuses to bet on another comeback, the warning may not be about Verstappen's ability. It may be about the size of the problem around him. And that changes everything. Because Verstappen can solve many problems from inside the cockpit. He can brake later. He can control the tires. He can react faster than the drivers around him. He can carry speed through a corner that another driver would lose. But he cannot rebuild an entire Formula One team while driving the car. He cannot replace every experienced employee who leaves. He cannot control recruitment. He cannot design every upgrade. He cannot guarantee that the next technical decision will work. At some point, even the greatest driver needs the team to meet him halfway. And this may be the first sign that Red Bull is no longer certain it can do that. For years, Verstappen's talent has made difficult situations look manageable. A bad weekend becomes a recovery. A weak car becomes competitive. A strategic problem becomes a smaller loss. And because the final result looks respectable, the deeper weakness can remain hidden. Imagine a house with water leaking through the roof. Someone places a bucket underneath it. The floor stays dry. The room still looks normal, but the roof has not been repaired. The damage is still there. The bucket is only hiding it. Verstappen has often been that bucket for Red Bull. He catches the mistakes. He limits the damage. He keeps the team alive when the situation should look much worse. But if the pressure keeps increasing, even he cannot stop the water forever. That is why Marko's comment carries so much weight. It suggests that Red Bull may understand something the public is only beginning to notice. Another miracle cannot be the plan. Another comeback cannot be guaranteed. And another season cannot depend entirely on Verstappen producing more than the car should allow. Red Bull needs real progress. Not promises. Not hopeful statements. Not another explanation after a difficult weekend. The team needs proof that the structure around Verstappen is still strong enough to support him. And right now, that proof is being questioned. The source points to Red Bull recruiting new staff while Verstappen downplays the importance of people leaving the team. He says movement between teams is part of the sport. That is true. Formula One employees move constantly. Engineers receive new offers. Departments change. Rival teams compete for the same talented people. But timing changes how those moves are understood. When a dominant team recruits aggressively, it looks ambitious. When a team under pressure recruits while departures are already attracting attention, it can look like emergency repair. And that is the uncomfortable question surrounding Red Bull. Is the team building something stronger? Or is it trying to replace something it has already lost? The source does not provide enough detail to answer that. But the uncertainty itself is damaging. Because Formula One teams do not run on talent alone, they run on trust. The driver trusts the engineers. The engineers trust the leadership. The strategy team trusts the information. And everyone trusts that the project is moving forward. Once that trust weakens, every small problem begins to feel larger. One poor result becomes a warning. One unsuccessful upgrade becomes a pattern. One staff departure becomes the beginning of an exodus. And one careful comment from Verstappen becomes evidence that he may already be looking toward the exit. That may be unfair. But this is how pressure grows. And Red Bull is now trapped inside that pressure. If Verstappen sounds frustrated, people say he wants to leave. If he sounds calm, people say he is hiding the truth. If he rejects the rumors, people say the rumors must be serious enough to require a denial. There is no perfect response. That is what makes this situation so dangerous. Red Bull is not only fighting for performance on the circuit. It is fighting the belief that its strongest years may already be behind it. And once that belief enters the team, it affects everyone. The engineers feel it. Sponsors notice it. Rival teams exploit it. Potential recruits question it. And Verstappen has to decide whether the project around him still deserves complete trust. That is the real pressure point. Not whether Red Bull still values him. Of course it does. The deeper question is whether Red Bull can still give him what matters most. A believable path back to the front. Because loyalty can survive frustration. It can survive difficult races. It can even survive a disappointing season. But it cannot survive uncertainty forever. And one recent shift in Verstappen's language suggests that uncertainty may already be changing how he sees the entire campaign. That shift appears in one simple idea. Verstappen is trying to enjoy the season wherever he can. At first, that sounds positive. Sounds controlled. It sounds like a driver refusing to let pressure consume him. But in Formula 1, words often reveal more when the situation around them is uncertain. A driver who believes everything is moving in the right direction usually speaks about progress, momentum, and the next opportunity. A driver who talks about enjoying the season where he can maybe describing something different. He may be accepting that the good moments are no longer guaranteed. That does not mean Verstappen has given up. It does not mean he has decided to leave. The source does not support either claim. But it does suggest that the season may feel less predictable than Red Bull would want. And unpredictability changes the way a driver thinks. When a team is dominant, one difficult weekend feels temporary. The driver expects the car to recover. The engineers expect the next upgrade to work. The entire organization believes the problem can be contained. But when uncertainty grows, every difficult weekend starts asking a larger question. Is this only one bad race? Or is this the new reality? That question can be more damaging than the result itself. Because a poor result can be explained: traffic, tire behavior, setup, weather, strategy. But when the same uncertainty returns, explanations stop feeling reassuring. They begin to sound repetitive, and repetition creates doubt. Verstappen knows exactly what a successful Red Bull feels like. He knows when the car responds immediately. He knows when the team arrives with confidence. He knows when a difficult Friday becomes a strong Sunday because the system around him understands what to change. That experience gives him a standard that cannot be lowered easily. He is not comparing Red Bull with an average team. He is comparing the current Red Bull with the version that gave him complete belief. That is a much harsher comparison, and it is one Red Bull cannot avoid, because history can become both an advantage and a burden. Past success proves what the team is capable of, but it also reminds Verstappen how far the present may be from that level. This is why trying to enjoy the season matters. Enjoyment can be a form of strength. It can help a driver stay sharp. It can stop frustration from affecting performance. It can protect the relationship with the team. But it can also signal that the driver is separating his love of racing from his confidence in the wider project. Those two things are not identical. Verstappen can still love driving. He can still enjoy individual battles. He can still appreciate a strong result. And at the same time, he can question whether Red Bull is giving him the future he expects. The source does not say he is doing that, but it shows why the possibility is now being discussed. Because every comment arrives inside a larger atmosphere of doubt. And this is where Red Bull's problem becomes psychological. The team cannot control how every word is interpreted. If Verstappen says he is enjoying the season, people hear resignation. If he says the team is working hard, people hear that the problems are serious. If he says staff movement is normal, people hear that important people are leaving. If he rejects the narrative, people hear that the narrative has become impossible to ignore. That is the trap. Red Bull may still believe the situation is manageable. Verstappen may still believe the project can recover. But the outside world now treats every answer as evidence of hidden tension. And once that happens, rumors grow faster than facts. One report becomes 10 discussions. One cautious statement becomes a supposed warning. One unanswered question becomes a dramatic conclusion. That is how an unsupported claim about an owner wanting Verstappen gone can gain power. Not because the source confirms it, because the wider environment makes it feel possible. But here is the deeper issue. A rumor becomes dangerous when it starts affecting real decisions. An engineer considering Red Bull may wonder whether the team is stable. A current employee may begin thinking about other opportunities. A sponsor may ask whether the project is entering decline. A rival team may decide that this is the right moment to apply pressure. And Verstappen may find himself answering questions that Red Bull would rather solve on the track. That is why public perception matters. Formula One is not only a battle of cars. It is a battle of confidence. The strongest teams create the impression that they know exactly what comes next. They speak with one voice. They recover quickly. They make setbacks look temporary. Teams under pressure do the opposite, even when they do not intend to. Different comments create different interpretations. Recruitment creates questions. Departures create more questions. And every difficult result becomes part of the same story. Red Bull now needs to break that cycle. But it cannot break it by simply denying the loudest claim. It has to remove the conditions that allow the claim to survive. That means producing visible progress. It means showing that new staff are strengthening the organization. It means proving that departures have not damaged the team's ability to respond. And, most importantly, it means giving Verstappen something stronger than reassurance. Evidence. Because Verstappen will not judge Red Bull through headlines. He will judge it through the car. He will feel whether the balance is improving. He will know whether the team understands the weaknesses. He will see whether changes arrive quickly enough. And he will notice whether the same problems continue returning. That is where Red Bull has no place to hide. A public statement can calm a rumor for one day. A strong race can change the conversation for a week. But only consistent performance can restore trust. And consistency is exactly what uncertainty removes. One good weekend creates hope. The next difficult weekend destroys it. One promising change suggests progress. The next problem creates a new question. This pattern can become exhausting. Not only for the driver, for everyone. The engineers feel more pressure. The strategy team becomes more cautious. Leadership faces more questions. And every department understands that one mistake may be interpreted as evidence of a much larger collapse. That pressure can slow a team down. People begin protecting themselves. Decisions take longer. Risk becomes harder to accept. And the organization starts reacting instead of leading. That is especially dangerous in Formula One because hesitation costs time. A team cannot wait for perfect certainty. It must choose a direction. It must trust the data. It must commit resources.